Good afternoon, everybody, or perhaps I should say also good evening and good morning to some of our listeners across the world. Welcome to A Diversity of Kipling, 24 hours of readings. We're coming to you from Bateman's, Kipling's own home. He came here in 1902 and spent 33 years here, sometimes in great happiness and sometimes very sadly. Our diversity is aiming to introduce some of his work which you will know, and some more which you will have never heard of. I think diversity is certainly the right term for what we're going to offer, from biting social satire to splendid soldier stories, early science fiction, wonderful, enduring children's tales, and world-spanning travel writing. And of course, moving on to important war poetry. With that in mind, at the height of the centenary commemorative years of the 1914-18 war, we think it appropriate to ask Tony and Valmai Holt to start today's proceedings.
The best known of such poems is probably My Boy Jack, which we shall read in full. The title leads to the common misconception that Jack was John's family name. It wasn't. The family dog was called Jack, and the poem refers to the fact that John had at first wished to serve in the Navy.
Have you news of my boy Jack?
Not this tide.
When do you think he'll come back?
Not with this wind blowing and this tide.
Anyone else had news of him?
Not this tide. For what is sunk will hardly swim, not with this wind blowing and this tide.
But what comfort can I find?
None this tide, nor any tide, except he did not shame his kind, not even with that wind blowing and that tide. Then hold your hand up, all the more this tide and every tide, because he was the son you bore and gave to that wind blowing and that tide.
We're now going to move on to something which I'm going to take part in, instructed by one of our readers, Pamela Morgan, and I'm going to call on another member of the Society, our treasurer, Mike Kipling, who's going for the part of the young soldier. Can you do that, Mike? Yes. So I'm going to invite Pamela to introduce us, ready to do one of the pieces which T.S. Eliot, who was, of course, one of our vice presidents in his day, described as a poem. He was not convinced that much of Kipling's work was poetry, but he named this as one. Pamela. We have Danny Deaver.
What are the bugles blowing for?
Said files on parade.
To turn you out, to turn you out.
The colour sergeant said.
What makes you look so white? So white?
Said files on parade.
I'm dreading what I've got to watch.
The colour sergeant said. For they're hanging, Danny Deaver. You can hear the Dead March play. The regiment's in Hollow Square. They're hanging him today. They've taken off his buttons off and cut his stripes away, and they're hanging Danny Deaver in the morning.
What makes the rear rank breathe so hard?
Said files on parade.
Bit of cold, bit of cold.
The colour sergeant said.
What makes that front rank man fall down?
Said files on parade.
Touch of the sun, touch of the sun.
The colour sergeant said. They're hanging Danny Deaver. They are marching of him round. They have halted Danny Deaver by his coffin on the ground, and he'll swing in half a minute for a sneaking shooting hound. Oh, they're hanging Danny Deaver in the morning.
His cot was right-hand cot to mine.
Said files on parade.
He's sleeping out and far tonight.
Colour sergeant said.
I've drank his beer a score of times.
Said files on parade.
He's drinking bitter beer alone.
The colour sergeant said. They are hanging Danny Deaver. You must mark him to his place, for he shot a comrade sleeping. You must look him in the face. 900 of his county and the regiment's disgrace, while they're hanging Danny Deever in the morning,
What's that so black agin the sun?
said files on parade.
It's Danny, fighting hard for life.
The colour sergeant said,
What's that whimpers overhead?
said files on parade.
It's Danny's soul that's passing now.
The colour sergeant said. Well, they're done with Danny Deever. You can hear the quickstep play. The regiment's in column and they're marching us away. Ho, the young recruits are shaking and they'll want their beer today after hanging Danny Deever in the morning.
Robin Mitchell, a past volunteer here at the National Trust at Bateman's, and also a past member of the Kipling Society's own council. Robin, the last of the Light Brigade.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In 1890, there was an anniversary reunion of survivors of one of the celebrated Victorian feats of arms and the condition that these survivors were in. It will not take you a moment to know which was the feat of arms, but this poem, which describes the history and background of the event, shows Rudyard Kipling's strong belief in what is now called the military covenant and his extreme annoyance when, through needless thoughtlessness, complacency, and ignorance, casualties and deaths have occurred and the covenant has been broken. The last brigade, the Light Brigade. There were 30 million English who talked of England's might. There were 20 broken troopers who lacked a bed for the night. They had neither food nor money. They had neither service nor trade. They were only shiftless soldiers, the last of the Light Brigade. They felt that life was fleeting. They knew not that art was long, that though they were dying of famine, they lived in deathless song. They asked for a little money to keep the wolf from the door, and 30 million English sent them £20 and 4. They laid their heads together. They were scarred and lean and grey. Keen were the Russian sabres, but want was keener than they. And an old troop sergeant muttered, "Let us go to the man who writes the things about balaclava that kiddies at school recites." The troop sergeant was speaker, and, begging your pardon, he said, "You wrote of the Light Brigade, sir. Here's all that isn't dead. It's all come true what you said, sir, regarding the mouth of hell. For we're all of us nigh to the workhouse. We thought we'd call and tell." "No, thank you, we don't want food, sir. But couldn't you take and write, a sort of to be continued, and see next page of the fight? We think that someone has blundered, and couldn't you let them tell them how? You wrote, we were heroes once, sir. Please write, we are starving now." The poor little army departed, limping and lean and forlorn, and the heart of the master singer grew hot with the scorn of scorn, and he wrote for them wonderful verses that swept the land like flame, till the fatted souls of the English were scourged with the thing called shame. O 30 million English who babble of England's might, behold, there are 20 heroes who lack their food tonight. Our children's children are lisping to honour the charge they made, and we leave to the streets and the workhouse the last of the Light Brigade.
We're moving smoothly on to a piece by a professional voice artist, a member of our society and an academic who has written on Kipling, but is also finding work using her beautiful voice to record material commercially. Erin Lutit reads for us When Earth's Last Picture is Painted.
When Earth's last picture is painted, and the tubes are twisted and dried, when the oldest colours have faded, and the youngest critic has died, we shall rest, and, faith, we shall need it. Lie down for an aeon or two, till the master of all good workmen shall put us to work anew. And those that were good shall be happy, we shall sit in a golden chair, They shall splash at a 10-league canvas with brushes of comet's hair. They shall find real saints to draw from, Magdalene, Peter, and Paul. They shall work for an age at a sitting, and never be tired at all. And only the Master shall praise us, and only the Master shall blame, and no one shall work for money, and no one shall work for fame, but each for the joy of the working, and each, in his separate star, shall draw the thing as he sees it, for the God of things as they are.
I'm being spoilt here at Great Bateman's by wonderful support from everybody, from Pauline Wall, who's in charge overall, from Gary Enstone, who's about to do his own piece for us.
One of set phrases, one of those set pieces, comes out of a piece of work that we did a couple of years ago to try and find a piece of film footage of Rudyard Kipling. Now, despite being at the forefront of modern technology in his day, there wasn't a huge amount of film of him, and only one piece that we could find of him actually speaking, and so you could both see his face and hear his voice. To a speech he gave at the Royal Society of Literature in July 1935. As I say, it's a very small piece that was recorded by Pathé, and I'm very glad that they did record it because it gives us that little insight to his life. I have the honour to speak to you today, to our most welcome fellow craftsmen and craftswomen from Canada. We who use words
enjoy a peculiar privilege over our fellows. We cannot tell a lie. However much we may wish to do so, we only, of educated men and women, cannot tell a lie in our working hours. For it is with us as it is with timber. Every knot and shake in a board reveals some disease or injury that overtook the log while it was growing. She have experience in the forest, she take with her into the house. That is the law for us all, each in his or own.
Here we have the editor of the Kipling Society Journal, Professor Janet Montefiore, who is going to give us what I insist on calling the St. Helena lullaby.
How far is St. Helena from a little child at play? What makes you want to wander there with all the world between? Oh, mother, call your son again, or else he'll run away. No one thinks of winter when the grass is green. How far is St. Helena from a fight in Paris Street? I haven't time to answer now. The men are falling fast. The guns begin to thunder and the drums begin to beat. If you take the first step, you will take the last. How far is St. Helena from the field of Austerlitz? You couldn't hear me if I told, so loud the cannons roar. But not so far for people who are living by their wits. Gay go up means gay go down the wide world o'er. How far is St. Helena from the Emperor of France? I cannot see, I cannot tell, the crowns they dazzle so. The kings sit down to dinner and the queens stand up to dance. After open weather you may look for snow. How far is St. Helena from the capes of Trafalgar? A longish way, with 10 more years to run. Get south across the water underneath a falling star. What you cannot finish, you must leave undone. How far is St. Helena from the Beresina ice? An ill way, a chill way, the ice begins to crack. But not so far for gentlemen who never took advice. When you can't go forward, you must e'en come back. How far is St. Helena from the field of Waterloo? A near way, a clear way, the ship will take you soon. A pleasant place for gentlemen with little left to do. Morning never tries you till the afternoon. How far from St. Helena to the gate of heaven's grace? That no one knows, and no one ever will. But fold your hands across your heart and cover up your face. And after all your traipsings, Child, lie still.
We're going to call on John Lambert, who is the Honorary Secretary of the Kipling Society, to read from Stalky and Co.
Thank you, John. I'm going to read from Stalky. This happens to be the first story that was written concerning the adventures and performances of three schoolboys, Stalky, McTurk and Beetle. The smoking vapours of the Atlantic drove in reefs above the boys' heads. Out of the mist to windward, beyond the grey bar of Pebble Ridge, came the unceasing roar of mile-long Atlantic rollers. To leeward, a few stray ponies and cattle, the property of the northern potwallopers, and the unwilling playthings of the boys in their leisure hours, showed through the haze. The three boys had halted up by the cattle gate, which marks the limit of cultivation, where the fields came down to burrows from Northern Hill. Beetle, shock-headed and spectacled, drew his nose to and fro along the wet top bar. McTurk shifted one foot to the other, watching the water drain into either print, while Cochrane whistled through his teeth as he leaned against a sod bank, peering into the mist. A grown or sane person might have called the weather vile, but the boys at that school had not yet learnt the national interest in climate. It was a little damp, to be sure, but it was always damp in the Easter term, and sea wet they held could not give one a cold under any circumstances. Mackintoshes were things to go to church in, but crippled if one had to run at short notice across the heavy country. So they waited serenely in the downpour, glad as their mothers would not have cared to see. "I say, Corky," said Beetle, whitening his spectacles for the 20th time, "if we weren't going to help the Vitre, what are we here for?" "We're going to watch," was the answer. "Keep your eye on your uncle, and he'll pull you through."
The Ballad of East and West, from Barrack Room Ballads, Chris Morrison.
O east is east, and west is west, and never the twain shall meet, till earth and sky stand presently at God's great judgment seat. But there is neither east nor west, border nor breed nor birth, when two strong men stand face to face, though they come from the ends of the earth. Cummal is out with 20 men to raise the border side, and he has lifted the colonel's mare that is the colonel's pride. He has lifted her out of the stable door between the dawn and the day, and turned the calkins upon her feet, and ridden her far away. Then up and spoke the colonel's son that led a troop of the guides. Is there never a man of all my men can say where Cummal hides? Then up and spoke Mohammed Khan, the son of the Ras al Dar. If ye know the track of the morning mist, ye know where his pickets are. At dusk he harries the Abazai, at dawn he is into Bonaire. But he must go by Fort Buccleuch to his own place to fare. So if ye gallop to Fort Buccleuch as fast as a bird can fly, by the favour of God you may cut him off, ere he wins to the tongue of Jagai. But if he be past the tongue of Jagai, right swiftly turn ye then, for the length and the breadth of that grisly plain is sown with Cummal's men. There is rock to the left, rock to the right, and low lean thorn between, and ye may hear a breech bolt snick, where never a man is seen. The colonel's son has taken horse, and a raw, rough dun was he, with the mouth of a bell and the heart of hell and the head of a gallows tree. The colonel's son to the fort has won, they bid him stay to eat. Who rides at the tail of a border thief, he sits not long at his meat. He's up and away from Fort Buccleuch as fast as he can fly, till he was aware of his father's mare in the gut of the tongue of Jagai. Till he was aware of his father's mare with Cummal upon her back, and when he could spy the white of her eye, he made the pistol crack. He has fired once, he has fired twice, but the whistling ball went wide. Ye shoot like a soldier, Cummal said. Show now if ye can ride. They have looked each other between the eyes, and there they found no fault. They have taken the oath of the brother in blood on leavened bread and salt. They have taken the oath of the brother in blood on fire and fresh cut sod, on the hilt and the haft of the Khyber knife, and the wondrous names of God. The colonel's son, he rides the mare, and Camel's boy the dun. The two have come back to Fort Buccleuch, where there went forth but one. And when they drew to the quarter guard, full 20 swords flew clear. There was not a man but carried his feud with the blood of the mountaineer. Have done, cried the colonel's son. Put up the steel at your sides. Last night ye struck at a border thief. Tonight 'tis a man of the guides. East is east, and west is west, and never the twain shall meet, till earth and sky stand presently at God's great judgment seat. But there is neither east nor west, border nor breed nor birth, when two strong men stand face to face, though they come from the ends of the earth.
0020 AM, and a recorded piece by Jennifer Tay from Australia. And so how very correct that she's going to give us the sing-song of Old Man Kangaroo. First published in 1900, but collected in just so 1902.
Not always was the kangaroo as now we do behold him, but a different animal with 4 short legs. He was grey, and he was woolly, and his pride was inordinate. He danced on a sandbank in the middle of Australia, and he went to the big god Nquong. He went to Nquong at 10 before dinner time, saying, "Make me different from all other animals, make me popular and wonderfully run after by 5 this afternoon." Up jumped Nquong from his bath in the salt pan and shouted, "Yes, I will." Nquong called Dingo, yellow dog Dingo, always hungry, dusty in the sunshine, and showed him Kangaroo. Nquong said, "Dingo, wake up, Dingo. Do you see that gentleman dancing on an ash pit? He wants to be popular and very truly run after. Dingo, make him so." Up jumped Dingo, yellow dog Dingo, and said, "What? That cat rabbit?" Off ran Dingo, yellow dog Dingo, always hungry, grinning like a coal scuttle, ran after Kangaroo. Off went the proud Kangaroo on his 4 little legs like a bunny. This, O beloved of mine, ends the first part of the tale. He ran through the desert, he ran through the mountains, he ran through the salt pans, he ran through the reed beds, he ran through the blue gums, he ran through the spinifex, he ran till his front legs ached. He had to. Still ran Dingo, yellow dog Dingo, always hungry, grinning like a rat trap, never getting nearer, never getting farther, ran after Kangaroo. He had to. He tucked up his front legs, he hopped on his hind legs, he struck out his tail for balance weight behind him, and he hopped through the Darling Downs. He had to. Still ran Dingo, tired dog Dingo, hungrier and hungrier, very much bewildered, and wondered when in the world or out of it would Old Man Kangaroo stop. Then came Nquong from his bath in the sandpans and said, "It's 5 o'clock." Down sat Dingo, poor dog Dingo, always hungry, dusky in the sunshine, hung out his tongue and howled. Down sat Kangaroo, old man Kangaroo, stuck out his tail like a milking stool behind him and said, "Thank goodness, that's finished." Then said Naquong, who was always a gentleman, "Why aren't you grateful to Yellow Dog Dingo? Why don't you thank him for all he has done for you?" Then said Kangaroo, tired old Kangaroo, "He chased me out of the homes of my childhood. He chased me out of my regular meal times. He altered my shape so I'll never get it back. And he's played old Scratch with my legs." Then said Naquong, "Perhaps I'm mistaken, but didn't you ask me to make you different from all other animals, as well as make you truly sought after? And now it is 5 o'clock." "Yes," said Kangaroo, "I wish that I hadn't. I thought that you would do it by charms and incantations, but this is a practical joke." "Joke?" said Naquong from his bath in the blue gums. "Say that again, and I'll whistle up Dingo and run your hind legs off."
Early on a Sunday morning, we will ask Alistair Wilson to share with us MacAndrew's hymn.
Lord, thou hast made this world below the shadow of a dream, and taught by time, attack it so, except in always steam. Recoupler fans to spindle guide, I see thy hand, O God, predestination in the stride of yon connecting rod. John Calvin might have forged the same, enormous, certain, slow, I wrought it in the furnace flame, my institutio. I canna get my sleep tonight, old bones are hard to please. I'll keep the middle watch up here, alone with God and these my engines, after 90 days of race and rack and strain, through all the seas of all thy world, slam banging home again. Slam bang too much, they knock away, the crosshead gives a loose, but 30,000 mile of sea has gied 'em fair excuse. Fine, dark and clear, a full draught breeze and Ushant out of sight, and Ferguson relieving hay. Oh, girl, you'll walk tonight.
I'm going to call upon Isabel right out now to do Sussex for us.
God gave all men all earth to love, but since our hearts are small, ordained for each one spot should prove beloved over all. That as he watched creation's birth, so we in godlike mood may of our love create our earth, and see that it is good. So one shall Baltic pines content, as one some Surrey glade, or one the palm grove's droned lament before Levuka's trade. Each to his choice, and I rejoice the lot has fallen to me in a fair ground, ye Sussex by the sea. No tender-hearted garden crowns, no bosomed woods adorn our blunt bow-headed whale-back downs, but gnarled and writhen thorn. Bare slopes where chasing shadows skim, and through the gaps revealed, belt upon belt, the wooded, dim, blue goodness of the Weald. Though all the rest were all my share, with equal soul I'd see her 39 sisters fair, yet none more fair than she. Choose ye your need from Thames to Tweed, as I will choose instead such lands as lie twixt Rake and Rye, Blackdown and Beachy Head. I will go out against the sun, where the rolled scarp retires, and the long man of Wilmington looks naked toward the shires, and east till Dublin Rother cruise, to find the fickle tide, by dry and sea-forgotten walls, our ports of stranded pride. I will go north about the shores, and the deep gills that breed huge oaks and old, that which we hold no more than Sussex weed. Or south where windy Piddinghoe's beguiled dolphin veers, and black beside the wooded bank douse lie down our Sussex steers. So to the land our hearts we give, till the shore magic strike, and memory, use, and love make live us and our fields alike. That deeper than our approach and thought, beyond our reason's sway, Clay of the pit whence we were wrought yearns to its fellow clay. God gives all men all earth to love, but since man's heart is small, ordains for each one spot shall prove beloved over all. Each to his choice, and I rejoice the lot has fallen to me. In a fair ground, ye, Sussex by the sea.
Extract from Kim by John Radcliffe.
Another of Kipling's much-loved figures is Kim, wandering with the Lama across northern India in search of the river of the Arrow. Here they come out of the fields into the Grand Trunk Road. Now let us walk, muttered the Lama, and to the click of his rosary they walked in silence, mile upon mile. The Lama, as usual, was deep in meditation, but Kim's bright eyes were open wide. This broad, smiling river of life, he considered, was a vast improvement on the cramped and crowded Lahore streets. There were new people and new sights at every stride. Castes he knew, and castes that were altogether out of his experience. They met a troop of long-haired, strong-scented Sansis, with baskets of lizards and other unclean food on their backs, their lean dogs sniffing at their heels. These people kept their own side of the road, moving at a quick, furtive jog trot, and all other castes gave them ample room, for the Sansi is deep pollution. Behind them, walking wide and stiffly across the strong shadows, the memory of his leg irons still on him, strode one newly released from the jail, his full stomach and shiny skin to prove that the government fed its prisoners better than most honest men could feed themselves. Kim knew that walk well and made broad jest of it as they passed. Then an Akali, a wild-eyed, wild-haired Sikh devotee, in the blue-checked clothes of his faith, with polished steel quoits glistening on the cone of his tall blue turban, stalked past, returning from a visit to one of the independent Sikh states, where he had been singing the ancient glories of the Khalsa to college-trained princelings in top boots and white-cord breeches. Kim was careful not to irritate that man, for the Akali's temper is short and his arm is quick.
Young Tradition, that's Peter Bellamy and Heather Wood in Oak and Ash and Thorn. But in fact, Kipling called it a tree song, as it was published in Puffer Books Hill in 1906.
Of all the trees that grow so fair, old England to adorn, greater honour beneath the sun than oak and ash and thorn. Sing oak and ash and thorn, good sirs, all of a midsummer's morn. Surely we sing of no little thing in oak and ash and thorn. Oak of the clay lived many a day, or ever Aeneas began. Ash of the loam was a lady at home when Brut was an outlaw man. Thorn of the down saw new Troy town, from which was London born. Witness hereby the ancient triumph, oak and ash and thorn. Sing oak and ash and thorn, good sirs, all of a midsummer's morn. Surely we sing of no little thing in oak and ash and thorn. You that is old in churchyard mould, he breedeth a mighty bow. All of her shoes do wise men choose, and beach for cups also. But when ye have killed and your bowl is spilled, your shoes are clean and worn. Back ye must speed for all that ye need to oak and ash and thorn. Sing oak and ash and thorn, good sirs, all of a midsummer's morn. Surely we sing of no little thing in oak and ash and thorn. Elm she hates mankind and waits till every gust be laid, to drop a limb on the head of him that anyway trusts her shade. But whether a lad be sober or sad, or mellow with ale from the horn, he'll take no wrong when he lieth along 'neath oak and ash and thorn. Sing oak and ash and thorn, good sirs, all of a midsummer's morn. Surely we sing of no little thing in oak and ash and thorn. Oh, do not tell the priest our plight, or he would call it a sin. But we've been out in the woods all night, a-conjuring summer in, and we bring you news by word of mouth, good news for cattle and corn. Now is the sun come up from the south, with oak and ash and thorn. Sing oak and ash and thorn, good sirs, all of a midsummer's morn. England shall bide till judgment tide by oak and ash and thorn.
Our next victim, Susan Smith, has decided to read us We and They. And this, of course, was in Debits and Credits, 1926. And an introduction first, please, if you could. Thank you, Susan.
We and They. The poem We and They was first published in 1926 in the collection Debits and Credits. This was after Kipling's preoccupation after the end of the First World War with writing military history, in the process of coming to terms with his son's death. Being written late in his career, it seems to represent a refinement of Kipling's earlier views from the imperialist sentiments he is normally associated with. As a plea for consideration of other people's values, it seems particularly appropriate during the current debate surrounding Brexit. We and they, a friend of the family. Father, mother and me, sister and auntie say, all the people like us are we, and everyone else is they. And they live over the sea, while we live over the way. But would you believe it, they look upon we as only a sort of they. We eat pork and beef with cow horn-handled knives. They who gobble their rice off a leaf are horrified out of their lives. While they who live up a tree and feast on grubs and clay, isn't it scandalous, look upon we as a simply disgusting they. We shoot birds with a gun, they stick lions with spears. Their full dress is on, we dress up to our ears. They like their friends for tea, we like our friends to stay, and after all that, they look upon we as an utterly ignorant they. We eat kitcheny food, we have doors that latch. They drink milk or blood under an open thatch. We have doctors to fee, they have wizards to pay, an impudent heathen they look upon we as a quite impossible they. All good people agree, and all good people say, all nice people like us are we, and everyone else is they. But if you cross over the sea, instead of over the way, you men end by, think of it, looking on we as only a sort of they.
We're asking Mike Lacey to extract a piece of his choice from they and share it with us. Please, Mike.
Kipling's eldest daughter, Josephine, died in New York, aged just 6. No one could love a child more than Kipling loved his daughter. The heartbreaking short story, They, tells of a motorist driving through West Sussex who discovers a lovely garden and an old country house inspired by Bateman's. The house is occupied by a beautiful blind woman and the children she cares for.
Feel how they put the latches low down for the sake of the children.
She swung a light door inward. By the way,
where are they?
I asked.
I haven't even heard them today.
She did not answer at once. Then,
I
can only hear them, she replied softly.
This is one of their rooms. Everything ready, you see?
She pointed into a heavily timbered room. There were little low gate tables and children's chairs, a doll's house, its hooked from its hooked front half open, faced a great dappled rocking horse from whose padded saddle it was but a child's scramble to the broad window seat overlooking the lawn. A toy gun lay in a corner beside a gilt wooden cannon. "Surely they've only just gone," I whispered. In the failing light, a door creaked cautiously. I heard the rustle of a frock and the patter of feet, quick feet through a room beyond. "I heard that," she cried triumphantly. "Did you? Children! Oh, children! Where are you?" They must have slipped down while we were in the passages, and now thought themselves perfectly hidden behind an old gilt leather screen. By child's law, my fruitless chase was as good an introduction. But since I had taken so much trouble, I resolved to force them to come forward later by the trick, which children detest, of pretending not to notice them. I ceased to tap the leather, was indeed calculating the cost of the shed, when I felt my relaxed hand taken and turned softly between the soft hands of a child. So, at last, I had triumphed. In a moment, I would turn and acquaint myself with those quick-footed wanderers. The little brushing kiss fell in the centre of my palm as a gift on which the fingers were once expected to close, as the all-faithful, half-reproachful signal of a waiting child not used to neglect, even when grown-ups were busiest. A fragment of the mute code devised very long ago. Then I knew. Then it was as though I had known from the first day when I looked across the lawn at the high window.
Ray Beck has some pieces to offer with his mandolin.
This is a rather unseasonal poem. It's called Christmas in India. And it describes the heartache and homesickness that the British in India felt round about Christmas time. Dim dawn behind the tamarisk, the sky is saffron yellow, as the women in the village grind the corn. And the parrot seeks the riverside, each calling to his fellow, that the day the staring eastern day is born. Oh, the white dust on the highway, the stench is in the byway, the clammy fog that hovers o'er the earth. At home they're making merry, 'neath the white and scarlet berry. What part of India's exiles in their mirth? Full day behind the tamarisk, the sky is blue and staring, as the cattle crawl afield beneath the yoke. And they bear one o'er the field path, who's beyond all hope or caring, to the ghats beneath the curling wreaths of smoke. Call on Rama going slowly, as ye bear your brother lowly. Call on Rama, he may hear perhaps your voice. With our hymn books and our psalters, we appeal to other altars, and today we bid good Christian men rejoice. Grey dust behind the tamarisk, parrots flock together, as at home the Christmas day is breaking warm. And they'll drink our health at dinner, those who say how much they love us, then forget us till another year be gone. Oh, the toil that knows no breaking, the hemlock ceaseless aching, the black dividing sea and alien plain. Youth was cheap, wherefore we sold it. Gold was good, we tried to hold it. And today we know the fullness of our gain.
So we're straight on, and we have Linda Burton, who's going to be doing Merrow Down for us. A very moving piece when you know what the story is here. This, of course, was in Just So Stories, published in 1902. But you must remember that in 1902, they were looking back just 2 or 3 years to the death of their daughter Josephine in March of 1899. Linda Burton with Merrow Down. Please, Linda, take it away.
There runs a road by Merrow Down, a grassy track today it is, an hour out of Guildford town, above the River Way it is. Here when they heard the horse bells ring, the ancient Britons dressed and rode, to watch the dark Phoenicians bring their goods along the western road. Yes, here or hereabouts they met, to hold their racial talks and such, to barter beads for Whitby jet, and tin for gay shell talks and such. But long ago, before that time, when bison used to roam on it, did Taffy and her daddy climb that down and had their home on it. Then beavers built in Broadstone Brook and made a swamp where Bramley stands, and bears from Sheer would come and look for Taffamay where Shamley stands. The way that Taffy called Waggay was more than 6 times bigger then, and all the tribe of Tegumay, they cut a noble figure then. Of all the tribe of Tegumay who cut that figure, none remain. On Merrow Down the cuckoos cry, the silence and the sun remain. But as the faithful years return, and hearts unwounded sing again, comes Taffy dancing through the fern, to lead the Surrey spring again. Her brows are bound with bracken fronds, and golden elf locks fly above. Her eyes are bright as diamonds, and bluer than the sky above. In moccasins and deerskin cloak, unfearing, free and fair she flits, and lights her little damp wood smoke, to show her daddy where she flits. For far, oh very far behind, so far she cannot call to him, comes Tegumay alone to find the daughter that was all to him.
Now I'm going to ask Roger Ayres to read The Gardener. It was first written in 1925 and collected in Debits and Credits in 1926. Roger, please, The Gardener.
Next morning, Mrs. Scarsworth left early on her round of commissions, and Helen walked alone to Hargensay III. The place was still in the making, and stood some 5 or 6 feet above the metalled road, which it flanked for hundreds of yards. Culverts across a deep ditch served for entrances through the unfinished boundary wall. She climbed a few wooden-faced earthen steps, and then met the entire crowded level of the thing in one held breath. She did not know that Hargensay III counted 21,000 dead already. All she saw was a merciless sea of black crosses, bearing little strips of stamped tin at all angles across their faces. She could distinguish no order or arrangement in their mass, nothing but a waist-high wilderness, as of weed-stricken dead, rushing at her. She went forward, moved to the left and the right hopelessly, wondering by what guidance she should ever come to her own. A great distance away there was a line of whiteness. It proved to be a block of some 200 or 300 graves whose headstones had already been set, whose flowers were planted out and whose new-sown grass showed green. And here she could see clear-cut letters at the ends of the roads, and referring to her slip, she realized that it was not here she must look. A man knelt behind a line of headstones, evidently a gardener, for he was firming a young plant in the soft earth. She went towards him, her paper in her hand. He rose at her approach, and without prelude or salutation asked, "Who are you looking for?" "Lieutenant Michael Turrell, my nephew," said Helen slowly, and word for word as she had said many thousands of times in her life. The man lifted his eyes and looked at her with infinite compassion before he turned from the fresh-sown grass towards the naked black crosses. "Come with me," he said, "and I will show you where your son lies." When Helen left the cemetery, she turned for a last look. In the distance she saw the man bending over his young plants, and she went away, supposing him to be the gardener.
In this country, The Way Through the Woods is part of GCSE for many children, and they will have examined it as a ghost story. And so John Radcliffe is the perfect person to be offering this to us. So, John Radcliffe, The Way Through the Woods.
Kipling was once talking to a 6-year-old friend of his little daughter, Josephine. She said she loved the open downs, but in the forest she felt scared of ghosts. A little while later, Kipling wrote her this poem. It's called The Way Through the Woods. They shut the road through the woods 70 years ago. Weather and rain have undone it again. And now you would never know there was once a road through the woods before they planted the trees. It is underneath the coppice and heath and the thin anemones. Only the keeper sees that where the ring-dove broods and the badgers roll at ease, there was once a road through the woods. Yet, if you enter the woods of a summer evening late, when the night air cools on the trout-ringed pools, where the otter whistles his mate, they fear not men in the woods, because they see so few. You will hear the beat of a horse's feet, and the swish of a skirt in the dew, steadily cantering through the misty solitudes, as though they perfectly knew the old lost road through the woods. But there is no road through the woods.
Your introduction is yours, Richard Rattle with Tommy. Thank you.
The origin of Tommy Atkins as a nickname for the English soldier is not known for certain. There is a record of it as far back as 1743. The War Office was using it in 1815, and the Duke of Wellington made it popular in 1843, remembering an incident of bravery in 1794 by a grenadier under his command called Thomas Atkins. The nickname applies only to the English soldier in the ranks, not to his officers, nor, for example, to the Scottish soldier, who is known simply as Jock. The poem was first published in 1890, shortly after Kipling's return to England from India, where he had talked with soldiers in their barracks and developed a great interest in and concern for their welfare and conditions of service. For well over 200 years, our soldiers have been praised by the British public during major conflicts, but scorned and detested by most civilians at other times. I went into a public house to get a pint of beer. The publican, he up and says, "We serve no redcoats here." The girls behind the bar, they laughed and giggled fit to die. I out into the street again, and to myself says I, "Oh, it's Tommy this and Tommy that and Tommy go away." But it's "Thank you, Mr. Atkins," when the band begins to play. The band begins to play, my boys, the band begins to play. Oh, it's "Thank you, Mr. Atkins," when the band begins to play. I went into a theatre, as sober as could be. They gave a drunk civilian room, but hadn't none for me. They sent me to the gallery or round the music halls. But when it comes to fighting, Lord, they'll shove me in the stalls. For it's Tommy this and Tommy that and Tommy way outside. But it's special train for Atkins when the troopers on the tide. The troop ship's on the tide, my boys, the troop ship's on the tide. Oh, it's special train for Atkins when the troopers on the tide. Yes, making mocker uniforms that guard you while you sleep is cheaper than them uniforms, and their starvation cheap. And hustling drunken soldiers when they're going large a bit is 5 times better business than parading in full kit. Then it's Tommy this and Tommy that and Tommy, how's your soul? But it's thin red line of heroes when the drums begin to roll. The drums begin to roll, my boys, the drums begin to roll. Oh, it's thin red line of heroes when the drums begin to roll. We aren't no thin red heroes, nor we aren't no blackguards too, but single men in barracks, most remarkable like you. And if sometimes our conduct isn't all your fancy paints, why, single men in barracks don't grow into plaster saints. Well, it's Tommy this and Tommy that and Tommy fall behind. But it's pleased to walk in front, sir, when there's trouble in the wind. There's trouble in the wind, my boys, there's trouble in the wind. Oh, it's pleased to walk in front, sir, when there's trouble in the wind. You talk of better food for us, and schools and fires and all. We'll wait for extra rations if you treat us rational. Don't mess about the cookroom stops, but prove it to our face. The widow's uniform is not the soldier man's disgrace. For it's Tommy this and Tommy that and chuck him out, the brute. But it's saviour of his country when the guns begin to shoot. And it's Tommy this and Tommy that and anything you please. And Tommy ain't a blooming fool. You bet that Tommy sees.
In the spirit of contrast, I propose to use a recorded poem by Pamela Morgan, which is very well known to us indeed, because it represents Kipling's understanding, true understanding, of what his own son had experienced in those last few days before his death.
If you know your Bible and prayer book, as Kipling did, you will know that the night before he died, Jesus and his disciples went to the garden called Gethsemane, where Jesus prayed that his cup might pass, that which he dreaded would not happen. Kipling's poem Gethsemane moves this story to northern France, where a soldier resting away from the front dreads what will happen when he returns there. The garden called Gethsemane, in Picardy it was, and there the people came to see the English soldiers pass. We used to pass, or halt as it might be, and ship our masks in case of gas beyond Gethsemane. The garden called Gethsemane, it held a pretty lass, but all the time she talked to me, I prayed my cup might pass. The officer sat on the chair, the men lay on the grass, and all the time we halted there, I prayed my cup might pass. It didn't pass, it didn't pass, it didn't pass from me. I drank it when we met the gas beyond Gethsemane.
Mowgli's song that he sang at the Council Rock when he danced on Shere Khan's hide. The song of Mowgli, I Mowgli am singing, let the jungle listen to the things I have done. Shere Khan said he would kill, at the gates in the twilight. He would kill Mowgli the frog. He ate and he drank. Drink deep, Shere Khan, For when wilt thou drink again, sleep and dream of the kill? I am alone on the grazing grounds. Grey brother, come to me, lone wolf, for there is big game afoot. And so we come to the end of 24 hours, and we're going to ask Pauline to close with one more. But I want to say that when I first came here with the idea, I could not have dreamt of the support that we've had.
If I have given you delight by aught that I have done, let me lie quiet in that night, which shall be yours anon.
Oh, where are you going to, all you big steamers, with England's own coal up and down the salt seas? We are going to fetch you your bread and your butter, your beef, pork and mutton, eggs, apples and cheese.